everybody, it's day 10 and you made it halfway through our study on the book of Revelation. We truly hope that by now you've realized that while, yes, this book has plenty of descriptive images that are in some cases, let's be honest, kind of disturbing, that doesn't necessarily mean we should draw conclusions about, on the one hand, the impending end of the world in a certain order, causing us to live our lives in total fear. And on the other hand, we also don't want us to throw this book out and completely ignore it just because it's kind of weird. And as I personally have been studying more about this book right here along with you, I've heard several authors describe Revelation as a painting or a piece of art, maybe a piece of music, where the more you look at it, the more you listen to it, the more you'll see or appreciate over time. In John's words, even more is revealed. So today, let's dive into chapter 10 and see what we might be able to take from this section of John's visions. Spoiler alert, the weirdness does pop up in this chapter. All right, before we start today, I want to preface this part of our study with this question. Is having faith easy or hard? And maybe you're quick to respond to that question. There's not a right answer that I'm looking for, but have it in mind in the back of your head as you're looking at this part of Revelation. So if you'll remember from chapters 8 and 9, we see that the Lamb has opened up the seventh seal, and then the seven angels receive seven trumpets. John was really big on the importance of the number 7, as we've talked about before. And John based this on the 7-day Sabbath cycle in the Old Testament. There are lots of things that John would have expected his readers to know about the Hebrew Scriptures, this being one of them. So we get to the end of chapter 9, and we would expect that, again, John would talk about the seventh angel blowing the seventh trumpet. We might expect another really terrible image of what would happen to humankind if humans continued to fail being repentant. But instead, we read in chapter 10 this, "And I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, wrapped in a cloud, with a rainbow over his head. His face was like the sun, and his legs like pillars of fire. He held a little scroll open in his hand. Setting his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, he gave a great shout, like a lion roaring." Okay, you might be thinking, yeah, that's kind of weird. Cloud man with rainbow head and fire legs who holds a little tiny scroll but has a loud shouting voice? What in the world could this be pointing to? And then, dear Revelation readers, you might continue to wonder what this is all about when, in verse 9, the angel instructs John not just to take this open scroll, but to eat it. But guess what? As I mentioned before, John would expect his readers to know certain things from the Hebrew Scriptures, and this concept of eating a scroll, it actually would have been familiar to those who knew the prophets Ezekiel and Jeremiah. Eating a scroll meant that the message conveyed within that scroll was now intimately connected to him and not just separate from him. It's a strange image, to be sure, but believe it or not, it's an image that would have been somewhat familiar. So here, at the end of chapter 10, we hear that scroll that John ingested is on the one hand sweet like honey in his mouth, but also bitter when it reaches his stomach. Oh, goodness, what do we do with all of this? Well, remember, eating the scroll was tied to the prophetic understanding that you now had some really intimate knowledge, maybe even understanding of what you had ingested. And remember also about that rainbow angel head at the beginning? Well, it's interpreted that the small scroll that angel was holding is actually the Word of God, the gospel, as we might say, the story that does ultimately bear witness to the saving power of Jesus, or the sweetness. But we wouldn't be genuinely honoring our story of faith if we didn't also recognize that sometimes committing to this gospel might lead us to experience pain or suffering. That's the bitterness. And as we read at the end of chapter 10, these voices say to John, once he's eaten this scroll, "You must prophesy again about many peoples and nations and languages and kings." And I wonder if that's a nod to the fact that the diversity of the many people and nations and languages and kings, or maybe leaders as we would think about it today, once all of us are together proclaiming our faith in Jesus, that doesn't necessarily mean that things will always be sweet for us. The challenging moments or the bitter moments, they are going to be a part of our reality too. So today, as you read chapter 10, think about that scroll as the gospel, which was both bitter and sweet. I think in general, sweeter things are relatively easy to eat. If I'm running late for a church meeting, let's just say, and I skipped breakfast, if I come and I see 2 plates sitting on the counter, one with a bunch of donuts and another with a bunch of raw broccoli, and I have a split second to decide what to eat, I'm going to pick a donut. It's easier to envision enjoyment from something sweet. Something that's bitter is often more difficult to want to embrace. So, in your faith journey, what has been sweet or easy? I really do hope and pray that there are a lot of sweet and easy things that have happened in your life because of your relationship with Jesus. But I wonder if this chapter in Revelation, it's reminding us that bitterness or difficulty, it's a part of living the gospel story too. So, as a second question today, be honest when you reflect, what's hard about following Jesus? If you'll remember when we started today, I mentioned an overarching question about faith, and I posed it to you as an either-or scenario. Is having faith easy, or is it hard? And I hope you can see that I maybe tricked you a little bit with that question. I don't know if it's really helpful to think of faith in that way. There may be sweet or easy moments, no doubt, but there may be bitter ones as well, and that is simply an honest part of our Christian story that is revealed in what we've learned together so far in this journey. Thanks so much for journeying with us, for sticking with us. We can't wait to continue next time as we dive into chapter 11. Thanks so much.